Good morning. Today is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024, and this daily bread is titled Finding Success by Trusting God. It is from Judges chapter 20, verses 17 through 48. And the key verse today is verse 28b. And the key verse says, "The Lord responded, 'Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands.'" Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swordsmen, all of them fit for battle. The Israelites went up to Bethel and inquired of God. They said, "Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Benjamites?" The Lord replied, "Judah shall go first." The next morning, the Israelites got up and pitched camp near Gibeah. The Israelites went out to fight the Benjamites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. The Benjamites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. But the Israelites encouraged one another and again took up their positions where they had stationed themselves the first day. The Israelites went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and they inquired of the Lord. They said, "Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjamites, our fellow Israelites?" The Lord answered, "Go up against them." Then the Israelites drew near to Benjamin the second day. This time, when the Benjamites came out from Gibeah to oppose them, they cut down another 18,000 Israelites, all of them armed with swords. Then all the Israelites, the whole army, went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening, and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord. In those days, the ark of the covenant of God was there, with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ministering before it. They asked, "Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjamites, our fellow Israelites, or not?" The Lord responded, "Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands." Then Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. They went up against the Benjamites on the third day, and took up positions against Gibeah as they had done before. The Benjamites came out to meet them, and were drawn away from the city. They began to inflict casualties on the Israelites as before, so that about 30 men fell in the open field and on the roads, the one leading to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. While the Benjamites were saying, "We are defeating them as before," the Israelites were saying, "Let's retreat and draw them away from the city to the roads." All the men of Israel moved from their places and took up positions about Tamar, and the Israelite ambush charged out of its place on the west of Gibeah. Then 10,000 of Israel's able young men made a frontal attack on Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that the Benjamites did not realize how near disaster was. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and on that day the Israelites struck down 25,100 Benjamites, all armed with swords. Then the Benjamites saw that they were beaten. Now the men of Israel had given way before Benjamin, because they relied on the ambush they had set near Gibeah. Those who had been in ambush made a sudden dash into Gibeah, spread out, and put the whole city to the sword. The Israelites had arranged with the ambush that they should send up a great cloud of smoke from the city, and then the Israelites would counterattack. The Benjamites had begun to inflict casualties on the Israelites, about 30, and they said, "We are defeating them as in the first battle." But when the column of smoke began to rise from the city, the Benjamites turned and saw the whole city going up in smoke. Then the Israelites counterattacked, and the Benjamites were terrified, because they realized that disaster had come on them. So they fled before the Israelites in the direction of the wilderness, but they could not escape the battle. And the Israelites who came out of the towns cut them down there. They surrounded the Benjamites, chased them, and easily overran them in the vicinity of Gibeah on the east. 18,000 Benjamites fell, all of them valiant fighters. As they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, the Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. They kept pressing after the Benjamites as far as Gittim, and struck down 2,000 more. On that day, 25,000 Benjamite swordsmen fell, all of them valiant fighters. But 600 of them turned and fled into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed 4 months. The men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put all the towns to the sword, including the animals and everything else they found. All the towns they came across, they set on fire. Daily bread. Number 1. Learning faith by coming to God. The Israelites were preparing to battle with the Benjamites, and they did something we haven't seen in a while. They turned to God. Even when they were defeated 3 consecutive times, they kept coming back to Him for guidance and obeyed His leading. We might wonder, why did God tell them to go into battle if they were going to lose? God was teaching them faith. And amazingly, these usually disobedient and rebellious people responded correctly. They didn't lose hope. They wept, fasted, prayed, and offered sacrifices, seeking God's help. They learned to trust God in that difficult situation, and God blessed them with victory in the end. How strong is your faith? Can you keep coming back to God, trusting Him, when you experience failures, troubles, and discouragement? Whatever we face, God usually wants us to learn something, because God's main concern is growing our faith. And our faith only grows when we learn to trust Him. Number 2, victory belongs to God. Verse 35 says, "The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel." If the Israelites had won the first battle, they might have become prideful and thought they won because of their own strength. But after being defeated 3 times, they could be certain that victory in the fourth battle was entirely God's doing. Sometimes we feel defeated when we face difficulties, fall into the same sinful habits, or see the people we love turning away from faith. After repeated attempts and failures, we are tempted to give up. We finally recognize that our own strength isn't enough to keep moving forward. We learn complete brokenness and surrender. That's when God is ready to step in. And that's when we realize that any victory from that point forward is solely God's doing. The truth is, we are weak and fragile on our own. God is the one who gives us victory. Instead of trying to fight in life alone, let's stand in God. He gives us real success in life. Prayer. Lord, please help me to strengthen my faith by continually turning to You, even when I face challenges or discouragement. Thank You for showing me that true victory comes from You, not from my own strength or abilities. One word: I can experience victory when I trust and stand in God.